So back in 1995, Power Rangers was going through a change where for the first time ever, they changed the suits. The first time they did this was with the Alien Rangers, which I think was a test to see if the audience would still watch, even if it wasn't the recognizable Zoo Ranger suits, plus the Kiba Ranger suits. And it worked. Kids still watched. So they decided instead of filming all this original footage, which they had to do for Mighty Morphin, they would just use the suits from Sentai that they get the Zords from. And so, the Zeo Powers were born. And in this video, we will be discussing the full story of those powers. But without further ado, let's get on into it. So during the end of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Season 3, there was a three-parter called Master Vile and the Metallic Armor. In this, Master Vile arrives and is trying to get the Zeo Crystal, but the Rangers get it before him. However, they stored it in the Megazords, but Master Vile steals them, so now he has the Zeo Crystal. He teleports the Megazords to his home galaxy, the M51 galaxy, and plans to use the power to destroy the Earth. However, the Rangers teleport to the M51 galaxy and manage to get the Zeo Crystal and the Megazords back. The Rangers then split the Zeo Crystals into 5 weirdly shaped fragments that I'm sure have nothing to do with the rest of the series, and they send all 5 fragments back in time into different places around the world. At the end of the season, Master Vile ends up turning back time, and the Rangers are unable to use their powers. Their power coins are even destroyed. But not before Billy uses the power of them to age himself back up. Zordon and Alpha then try to find replacements, and they do. The Zeo Crystal. The Rangers are then sent back in time to find the crystals, except Billy, as only those who are still affected by the time change are able to go. The Rangers all go on their quests, however, half of them don't even go back in time. Aisha just goes to Africa, and Kat goes to Australia, but she, it's not stated she's in present day. It's just she doesn't really have a reason to go back because, for some reason she sees a future version of herself. It's her grown-up version, teenage, and then she sees an elderly version, but the grown-up version uses magic of some kind. So it's not really stated what that is. Presumably it's the power of the Zeo Crystal. All of the Zeo Crystals set up these tests for the Rangers to do to get them to show that to know that they have the power to I don't know, get the Zeo Crystal. I don't know what else you'd call it. And then Adam, I guess you could say he goes back in time, but he also kind of just ends up at I don't know. Is it Japan maybe? It may be Japan, and he might talk to someone who's his grandma. I don't know. I know Rocky talks to his grandfather. Tommy meets, what's his name? True Heart? I think that's just what he calls him. Which actually, fun fact, is later explored further in Zeo. But anyway, I just went on a long rant. Aisha decides to stay in Africa, and in her place, Tanya is sent back with her Zeo Crystal. This even changes the timeline, with Aisha and her parents in Africa, and maybe even saying that she was never a Power Ranger, but it's not explicitly stated. However, when all the Rangers get home and combine the Zeo Crystal, Goldar and Rito steal it, and they blow the command center up. The Rangers are teleported out, but the command center is gone, and the season ends. We pick up in Zeo, with the Rangers running around in the rubble of the command center, looking for any signs of Zordon and Alpha. However, they can't find them. Instead, they find the Zeo Crystal, seemingly being dropped by Goldar and Rito, with them even losing their memories for the first half of Zeo. The Rangers pick it up, and it seems to cause some sort of reaction, and the Rangers can't move their feet, and the floor drops below them. They begin falling to lava. However, they are teleported to some sort of chamber. They begin looking around, with Billy saying it looks like the lower levels of the command center. The Rangers then hear Alpha's voice, with Alpha telling them to step into the vortex. They then do so and are teleported to the power chamber. Alpha welcomes them home, and Zordon explains that the power chamber was recently completed by Alpha. He congratulates the Rangers on the completion of the Zeo Crystal, and gives them their new powers, with Tommy being red in the leader, Adam being green and second in command, Rocky being blue and kind of second in command as well, Tanya being yellow, and Kat being pink. Billy decides to become more of a similar role to Alpha, with him even building the Zords and power-ups for the Rangers and spending most of his time in the command center. Zordon also explains that the Zeo Powers will constantly grow over time. The Rangers then spend the rest of the season battling the Machine Empire, and also sometimes Rita and Zed, but is like the Machine Empire is the main villains. During the show, specifically the Gold Ranger arc, Billy is shown to be working on something, often disappearing and reappearing without saying what he's doing. However, during the end of the show, Billy decides to move to Aquitar. After Zeo ends, the Rangers gain the Turbo Powers during the Turbo, a Power Rangers movie. Except Rocky. He's replaced by Justin. The Zeo Powers only make a brief appearance in the movie, with Kat attempting to morph, but they are cancelled out by the water. I don't know why it's water, but it is. The Rangers would then use the Turbo Powers until they are replaced by TJ, Carlos, and Ashley. The Zeo Powers are then only used 3 more times. Once in Forever Red, where Tommy returns and uses the powers again in that team-up, and during Legendary battles, where 5 Zeo Rangers would return, instead of Tommy actually turning, Trey does, with Kat, Tanya, Rocky, and Adam. And then Tommy didn't return because he's instead using the Mighty Morphin Green powers with his original team. However, he does, the Zeo Ranger 5 does appear in some archive footage from Gokaiger. However, you could still explain this as Tommy using his Master Morpher. Speaking of which, he does use the Master Morpher with the Zeo Powers in Dimensions in Danger. However, that's not like the main one. The main one is Dino Thunder Black and also Mighty Morphin Green. Now that I have explained what happened in the story, I'd like to just, slide in a few extra things. With the first one being a kind of well-known fan theory passed around that while Billy was disappearing during the Gold Ranger arc, he was actually working on the Turbo Powers, with the reason being that the Zeo Powers were growing too powerful for the Rangers to use, similar to how Jason's Gold Ranger powers were beginning to become unstable for him, so they needed Trey to take them back over. Presumably, the Gold Ranger powers were powered by a Zeo Crystal and is actually older than the other powers, which is why it is more powerful. I also wanted to touch on some deleted scenes from the Turbo movie, with one of those being a well-known deleted scene. However, I feel like most people don't actually know the story, they just really know this image. But the story behind it is that Adam and Tanya were using their Zeo powers to rescue Jason and Kimberly from Divatox's sub. But Adam and Tanya actually end up losing their powers kind of in the water because of the water. And are actually rescued by a canceled character called Mandika. I don't know if I pronounced that right, but she's a mermaid. And I also did some digging to find out that before David Yost left the show, which they actually had a written, they had written it like I don't know, a test script, a basic script, I don't know, version something of the script, and it was different than the original, as in that the Rangers would have fought Divatox and her crew with the Zeo powers, and then they would have lost the powers, and then Billy would have turned those powers into the Zeo powers, or not Zeo powers, Turbo powers. But then David Yost, the whole thing happened behind the scenes, and they had to rewrite it. But it's cool to know that. So that's going to do it for the history of the Zeo Powers. I hope you guys have enjoyed. If you did, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. But anyway, that's going to do it. So I shall see you guys next time. Goodbye.